A lot of people think of chocolate and think of just sugary goodness that is just probably not that great for you. But I want to take you on a trip that's even more special and even more different. So, once upon a time, there was a farm that people had closed the doors because the soil no longer grew cacao and people were no longer farming there. So, this family moved in with the goal of conservation, and they found that they could do even more than conservation. They could truly bring a product that was changing the industry and changing all the negative things associated with chocolate. So, beyond changing from a nutritional standpoint of sugar-infused chocolate, but to actually reforming the industry, to giving women jobs, to removing slavery from how chocolate is created. Stick with me to learn about how this amazing farm is doing a lot more than just transforming soil, but transforming lives. Awesome. I am very excited today to talk about diamonds are a girl's best friend, but I think chocolate would be the next best thing, right, that women love. So tell me a little bit about this industry. It's loved, it's obsessed on. Tell me some of the things that are tough on the environment, and what is the problem with the chocolate industry right now?
Well, thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for everybody joining in. Well, chocolate nowadays is big industry, and because it's such a big industry, it has a big impact. Yeah, that impact can be seen as two ways. For the way I see it, we can have a big positive impact or a big negative impact. I believe the great majority of the big scale production tends to be a negative impact, and the small scale is the other way around. Right now, we see that there is a huge growth in the consumption of chocolate, of what most people call chocolate. But I feel myself is interesting to also discuss what really is chocolate, because a lot of products are labeled as chocolate, and people are buying, but not necessarily understanding that what is driving them into buying that product is the sugar added to that product, more than the real supposed to be product, in this case chocolate deriving from cacao. That big demand puts us right now in that they push for more and more of new markets opening, especially Asia. Now Asians have started to like sugar and chocolate also. So it's growing big, and that is pushing since not only just now, but I think since colonial times, that we grow, big orchards and tend to overlook the nice way in which it was grown in the past, trying to just turn into like a colonialistic economy, in which we provide the raw material, and we have to be the countries in the tropics that are producing the great majority, the fastest it can be done. And it's interesting because in the history of the country and Latin America, that put many farmers to grow more cocoa in different systems that they have been doing traditionally. They started to say, oh, no, we can remove this plantain plant from the middle of the cocoa orchard because it's affecting the sunlight. And we could then plant another plant of cocoa, or remove this orange tree, or remove this, multiple examples. And in the end, they turned that beautiful, traditional, as it used to be, orchard, diversified with a lot of food sovereignty, into what nowadays, sadly to say, but looks like more the conventional of today, is the big, large-scale monocultures. Also, I think interesting to mention is that we tend to talk about chocolate, and some people is aware that, yes, it comes from a tree that is called cacao, or some people confuse at times calling it cocoa, but for me, cocoa is different than cacao. But at the same time, besides that, cacao is a big world out there. It's not just one plant, one single, plant that we are reproducing constantly. It's a large biodiversity, like with any other plant we consume. No, the genetic diversity that is in the plant is very interesting to also have a look at. The system, the capitalistic system that is pushing the big industry, is doing their best of interest of trying to push for hybrid cacaos nowadays. They are planting, well, here in Ecuador, a big hybrid clone is called CCN51. Yeah, and they're selling this like the new, like big promise for the small scale producers and the big scale producers, stating that it's more productive and more resistant. Both of which I can say they, according to our data and our results, are not true. And the other big problem with this one is that it's turning the Cacao Nacional, which is our variety, very important to Ecuador and to the world too. That variety is getting pushed away by this monoculture of the hybrid. No, there are other varieties in the country and elsewhere in Latin America, like the criollos, which are very good flavor wise. Yeah, some of the Amazonian ones called forasteros also, very interesting. And even some Trinitarian, no more the Central American, Caribbean coast and Caribbean islands. But all of those, all thought as good as they can be, not from my own perspective, but also from connoisseurs of this world, cacao and chocolate. They stay very close, but don't have what the Nacional has, which is this distinctive aroma. It's very much like the terroir, very distinctive of the Ecuador cacao, that you find due to a combination of factors. We have the Andes, we have the Pacific, we have the El Nino current hitting from the beautiful Galapagos Islands, the so-called Enchanted Islands. And you have also the current from the seas in the south, the Humboldt current. All that with the volcanic soils that we have and a good management of diverse orchard is what produces this fine cacao, what we call Nacional or Arriba or Aroma. Those are like synonymous, no words that have been used to describe. So the big industry, in order to keep the big large-scale operations, they tend to not only destroy food sovereignty, but in the end, they ended up destroying the soils too. And they used a lot of pesticides, chemicals, agrotoxics that are not only harmful for that soil that nurtures our daily lives, but also harmful for those who are working in the orchards directly. They're the ones that are getting exposed first with the highest dosages, but also not knowingly many people who eat cacao that is processed from this type of production, they're also eating little by little, small doses at a time, that eventually the body accumulates and could well, unfortunately, later develop into health problems, serious health problems. So also the big landlords of cacao are sometimes claiming land that they don't own, or even deforesting the last bits of forest available, taking land from community areas that sometimes the communities have decided to set aside for conservation, but they think that it would be best, in the interest of to just cut down everything and plant more cacao, because now there's like this situation that need to be told and addressed. So I think those are like the big things, happening with cacao at the moment. One more thing that is very tricky to deal with is that the Nacional cacao, we have many varieties also within that group. Yeah, and we have large pods, small pods, rounded plots, those that are more groove on the outside or more smooth. Yeah, they more or less, when you combine them, make for a very good product. But if you have nearby plantations of this hybrid happens to be a plant that the botanists and the agronomists define as a universal pollinator. No? Some plants, they can breed only with their own kind, they kind of protect the genetic pool a little bit, but others in different varieties, and the case of this hybrid is like ready to date with anyone, go to bed with anyone. It's promiscuous. It would go crazy, it likes to go with the Nacional, with the Criollos, with anything that comes by, And this is affecting a lot the purity of the genetics of Nacional. We're losing the genetic pool of Nacional is strongly getting eroded by big plantations of the CCN 51, to the point that some friends of ours, chocolatiers, have seen this, like experienced this by means of having a plot, and then the neighbor planted CCN 51. Following year, when they harvest and process those beans, they were already changing in their flavor. They were not the same. And then later, if they want to propagate those, they would not be again the same. So this is a very big problem as of now too for the Nacional. Luckily, where we are kind of isolated. We're not in a big area of production. We're marginal, and actually, very few people around us besides us is planting cacao, and most of them are using criollos and Nacional still for only small operations.
That's so many issues. And it's so frustrating when, like, even if you want to do something that you believe is correct, but other people's crops could affect and negatively deteriorate stuff that is so important to heritage and biodiversity. It's so frustrating when, even when you're doing the right thing, that there's people unintentionally or intentionally infringing upon that. And that's just so frustrating, because I think that applies to a lot of crops too, right? That's not a singular issue, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, yeah, it's something that, well, there is a little bit of opportunity I see with the other neighboring farmers who are enrolled in using cacao as a restoration tool, and is that we are within a biosphere reserve. Yeah, in the area where we are, is the Chocó Andino, is the seventh biosphere reserve designed and designated in Ecuador. So in this area, there has to be a special management plan, no, for everything happening, including not only the conservation of the water and the forest and the biodiversity, but also the different crops happening in the area. No, the management has to slowly change from areas that, as of now, not yet they are doing agroecological practices and things like that. But also, we are going to be sending a message, strong message, that we would like to see some, like, valleys, territories protected against this, potential threat. Yeah, but something that it can be done more formal, no, so to speak, in paper at least, because with that we can then say to the neighbors, yes, you want to plant cacao, okay, but plant this type of cacao because this is the one that is more of this biocultural heritage that we need to protect, no, and not go with the hybrid that is going the other way. Yeah. So, yeah, I think this year, the area, just like this last week, I don't know if you are up to the news, but we won a referendum to forbid mining exploitation in the area this last weekend. So 70% of the people say we want to keep this place as it is. No, we don't want to destroy it. And that puts a big message, no, also not for the rest of us living here, but also for the politicians. They now have to adapt to this logic because it's a citizen mandate, yeah. And so we hope to be able to bring this kind of proposals into the table, no, that are very important. Because in the end, cacao, yes, it's wonderful, it's unique, it's everything you want to categorize it as, but for us, it's like a good excuse to talk about conservation. Yeah, because we are talking about the whole, not just cacao. We're not focusing on the one plant, on the one seed that we would think that maybe others see it as, oh, we need to process as many of these seeds. No, but we would also like to process some of them, but we would also like to see many of them turning into new plants to restore areas nearby, to be able to, protect on site actively the heritage that we have. That's the big goal.
And tell me a little bit more about your, what is going on specifically on what you guys are doing, because obviously you're putting a lot of work into a really amazing one product, but it's not just one product. You guys are keeping the biodiversity, the heirloom seeds. Tell me a little bit about what you guys are really trying to achieve and set an example for.
Yeah, well, thank you again for the opportunity. Well, we are a team that came here as a family project about 14 years ago and decided to start not a cacao guardian reserve or orchard, But we first came here to do conservation of the rich biodiverse area in which we are. We are in this bioregion, very unique, the Choco and the Andes. They mix here, no, or two mega biodiverse areas that have the meeting point here, and therefore there's like thousands of species even yet to be described, to be discovered to science. Like you could not imagine almost many places like this in the world, but it has gotten little attention, unfortunately. If you compare to all the media looking after the Amazon, which is important and is as priority. I always say, if you look at the Amazon basin, it's a shared territory in between many countries, not huge country like Brazil, then you have Peru, you have Bolivia, Colombia, little bit of Ecuador is there too. But this area, the Choco, is only two countries, and it's only the northern part of Ecuador and the Pacific coast of Colombia. Yeah, so it's a much smaller area. So we came here, established. There's a property my Ecuadorian family bought about 14 years ago, 56 hectares. Yeah, I don't know what that would be in the acres, but we can figure out. And 48 of those have forests still as of today. And in the remaining part, in 8 hectares, is where we have been doing ecological restoration. At first, we had the idea of planting many trees to fulfill the whole property with forest, 100% forest. But then we started to think that if we are to open our eyes a little bit, we see that a lot of the problems for conservation of biodiversity and livelihoods of people derive from a mismanagement of agricultural practices. Yeah. So we say it's kind of irresponsible to just plant trees and then keep pointing the finger. No, you shouldn't be doing this, or you shouldn't be doing that, or you should do this, or you should do that. That way we started to analyze the matrix where we are and see is basically monocultures of heart of palm heart that people, like to eat in salads and they think is very healthy, but they don't understand or know where it comes from the majority of the times. And monoculture of pastures, for cattle grazing. And so those two activities, we see that like many other monocultures around the world, over time exhaust the soil, no? And then you have to cut more forest to, grow the area, the acreage or the hectareage, so that you can sort of recover a little bit productivity, but in the end it comes down again. So you have to do a little bit of more deforestation. And with many years passing, that continuous advance of the agri-pecuary frontier is killing our forests, is taking our forests. So we decided we wanted to try a different model first ourselves. And then once we say it works, because you can read, you can maybe hear here and there, but the other thing is to do it on site where you live, no? And so we took that challenge. Let's do polycultures instead of monocultures, because we need to work the other way around. Let's do all the inputs on the farm, and let's not think about this vicious circle of having to buy, seeds, having to buy chemicals to grow the food. And so little by little, we started. At the very beginning, it was the 3 plots, 3 more or less 1 hectare each plot. And we started with assessing that the soil was very compacted and degraded. So we started using plants to help that soil on an early stage to soften a little bit, to produce a lot of biomass, plants that we can use as green manures, that just plant many of the good plants in the tropics are happily growing, abundant, and very easy, just from stakes. You put on the ground a stake and it's sending shoots in 2 or 3 weeks, and then 2 or 3 months, and you have a lot of, good material. And we just chop and mulch and put everything coverage in the soils, and I started to learn and apply a lot of locally produced biofertilizer, in the way of using the cow manure with ashes, water, and molasses to ferment and then reproduce the benefic microorganisms of the stomach of the cow and send out to the soil. And also go to the forest. From the forest, collect more of the other type of microorganisms, the endogenous, the ones that are even stronger, and that helped us to bring back the memory of the functioning of the soil into the field, no? And after a few years' time, started to see like everything grow very fast. It's interesting to mention, I was about to forget, when we came to this property, the previous owners had closed the gate and said that this farm cannot be farmed anymore because the soils were exhausted, no? And they basically abandoned. There was grass really tall and very, very poor soil. But with these practices, regenerating the soil, allowing it to have its own local microbiology work, all that biomass that we were adding constantly, we start seeing the improvement of the soil, start collecting the first harvest, and then started to get more and more into it. It was like a really interesting feeling now once you start growing and saying the results and you start eating that. It's like you get inoculated also, and you start working more and things start looking nicer, and you start kind of flowing with the same energy as the regeneration is happening and lifting, no? And with the passing of days and weeks and months, we realized we wanted to just plant something of a crop that could help, sustainability of the reserve as a whole. Yeah, we decided cacao was going to be one because it's a biocultural heritage to Ecuador. And saying this is a big something, is a huge word, no? Biocultural heritage, or a big meaning in behind these few words. And that has to do, I perhaps want to explain very, very short, but that has to do with an archaeological discovery many years ago in Southeast Ecuador, about 10 plus years ago, when they were digging on archaeological site, pre-Inca. They discover ceramic in the shape of a cacao pot. Yeah. And so they found it very interesting, clean it and took it to a lab. And in the lab, with other ceramics they recovered from there, they could cut the ceramic with a laser and find inside mummified seeds of cacao that they were carbon dated to 5,500 years old.
That's so amazing.
It's why it's why we say it's a biocultural heritage. No? It has this long history, and we thought that at the very beginning it was just kind of fashionable. It was interesting. It was nice. Yes, cacao, but we didn't understood deeply what we were getting ourselves into. With the passing of time, people told us, no, don't plant cacao here. It doesn't grow. They have to plant other things. But we did because we knew that the conditions were good and we trust that we could grow cacao. But we were a little bit concerned with these comments a little bit only. And trying to be smart, we look for cacao seeds that came from various farms, not one farm. Yeah. And without knowing this, we play in favor of biodiversity because we have a background in ecology and biodiversity. And so we brought from 14, 15 farms, a lot of different genetic material from the Variedad Nacional and put it all here. And years went on and we started harvesting. We were thinking about selling these beans, but we realized that they were being put together with the ones growing with chemicals, the ones that were badly fermented, the ones that were dry by the side of the road, getting the exhaust of the vehicles. And we felt like, no, that's not fair to these seeds. No, these seeds need a better end. And we also started to realize that we have been very naive back then. And we were now thinking about, okay, the next step is processing. Yeah. And this is when my wife, Agustina, she said, no, we need to process because otherwise it's not going to be sustainable. And it's not fair that these cacao seeds have this end. At the beginning, I always say the same. I thought she was crazy, and I still think she's crazy, but she's a good crazy.
It's a good crazy, right? It's always good to have one good crazy person.
Exactly. And we started to do the very first experiments, the first batches, and started to give samples to friends and family. And little by little, that developed into a small room, and then 2 rooms, and then 4 rooms, and now it's 6 rooms. Very small still. but it's the artisanal workshop that we built it on site here where we grow the cacao and the fruits and all that. And then very interesting also in the passing of time, we started to realize that we have not only cacao, we knew, but we have now an opportunity to expand how we do with the rest of the fruits in the agroforestry. Not only we eat them for food sovereignty, which is great, and the people who collaborate with us can take some of these products too, but also we can include those, I call the neighbors of the cacao, to be part of the play. It's like a big play, like theater. It's not only the cacao alone who's going to make it interesting, it's all these other performances that are there, each adding a flavor, a color, a story, nutrients, of course, because they have different depths, their roots, so they dig from different nutrients and minerals down below. And so little by little, now we have a good selection. It's not just like 65, 70, 80, or 100%, but very interesting. And I say with a lot of respect and very innovative, also creative new chocolate bars, that include like combination of fruits that are very little known. Perhaps nobody else, as we know now, is producing because they are endemic to this bioregion. Yeah. Like the guayabilla, or also others that are a little bit better known, nuts from the white cacao or macambo. And we are also putting cardamom in some. We're starting also to use the same pulp of the cacao in the chocolate bars. And it has made making it very interesting now to have the chocolate has helped us to lure in many people into the reserve, that they come not knowing that this is a reserve. And when they come, I always say we go fishing with this lure that is called chocolate. They come in a little closer, and then we tell them the big story, that it's not chocolate only, but it's our food system is experiencing this. And if you decide to support small-scale farmers who are regenerating the soils, regenerating livelihoods, then we stand a better chance all together. No, it's not about this project to be, successful. It's about the whole of the society to slowly start changing. So that way we host families, we host here visitors that are also students of sommelier classes, food tasting and wine tasting and chocolate tasting, and local students from the high school and local elementary school, a university. And during the years also has helped us a lot to share and spread the word out with more farmers, because it's them whom really, as us, are doing the job on site, So it would be nice to also know that once a year, twice a year, we do a permaculture design course with neighbors that they have brought in that idea, and we have also embraced that and helped teaching the class of soil, mostly Agustina, my wife, me helping, and also agroforestry. In that case, a little bit more, but also she very involved, both of us. And when we sometimes find other farmers who are interested, they also come sometimes for longer periods, or 3 or 4 days, to do like a whole a week, sometimes on soil and a little bit of management of the crops as well. And it's been very enriching, not only to get to do the chocolate part, regenerating the soil and regenerating our palate to understand all this flavor, where it comes from, and the importance of the biodiversity next door, but also the social aspect for us has been very, very key, because it is something that needs to be meant too. We talk about regeneration, and many people focus a lot in the soil. Of course, is the fundamental thing that drives our planet and everything happening there. But if the people don't regenerate here and in their hearts and in their actions, I think it's going to be a little bit more difficult, no? Having said all that, now I feel I want to tell you a little story about the biodiversity of this mega biodiverse region. Yeah. When we came, I happened to have an interest for birds. I'm a bird fan,
You're in the right place for that,
almost,
right?
Yeah. Yes, this country alone has like almost 1,700 species of birds. Yeah, so it's huge. And the area in which we are, this biosphere reserve, from 3,000 meters above sea level and a little higher actually, from 5,000 meters down to 500 meters, there's an inventory of almost 700 species. Yeah. When we came to the areas where we wanted to do the restoration, we started to do a monitoring. I had in mind envision a large scale project, not in the way of restoration, but more in the way of research too. No, and in the first year, I inventor following methodologies, established 54 species of birds. And okay, 54 doesn't sound like much, but it's the starting figure, we say. It's at least something to compare over time. That's the goal. So we let some time pass, and at 5 years' time, I say, okay, now it's time to do it again. Now with the different result, same person, same methodology. Now 156 species, and over time, at 10-year time, it built it up to 201 more or less. Yeah. So with that, we see not only an increasing numbers, but also ecological interactions happening in the orchards, in the agroforestry plots. And the first one that I think is very important is that 68% of those bird species, it includes toucan, barbets, tanagers, flycatchers, trogons, puffbirds, etc. They are insectivorous, yeah, some part of their life, or most of their lives. So they're eating all these insects that for many farmers or for many people working agriculture always have this concept, insect is a bad thing, no? But I see here
birds,
how they
right?
eat those insects.
The birds would come eat the product too, so you would worry about that, right?
Yeah, that's true, yeah. And so they eat mostly insects, and they process those insects very fast, yeah, because evolution has pushed birds for flight, and fly is achievable. There's a lot of adaptations to it, but only and most of the time if you have a little weight to carry. That's why the birds have evolved to have hollow bones. So also when they eat, they process food very fast, and before they fly, they leave a contribution. I say a contribution to the soil that is a good fertility. And so it's interesting because nowadays some nearby farms, they buy a big truck full of chicken manure. And I joke with them and I say, no, I don't buy that because the birds give it for free. But it's true. It's those that they are buying, they collect, from big corporations, these big farms that gives them antibiotics also and gives them, hormones that are not necessarily good for our soils. So I say to them, you plant more trees, the birds would bring the manure and you don't have to pay the cost of the vehicle, the cost of the manure, and it will be free of those other potential contaminants too. So the birds are doing that, but also they are bringing joy to our lives. Every morning you hear a lot of birds singing. We have some groups that are like fans to the birds. They want to see the birds, so they have come here to watch birds and then do a little tour about the restoration and the cacao and chocolate. So together with that indicator matches all the rest. Is the seeing now of a nice soft soil, dark soil, the smell of it. Just yesterday and a little bit today, we were spraying. We do like in the times of the year in which there is less rain because it's always rainy here, but we call the less rainy season. We spray microorganisms, big clouds of this liquid full of life. And to me, it's the most attractive smell. It's like I want to just be there. For some people, it's too strong. They say, "Oh no," but I grown to have those microorganisms within me, so they feel at home when this is happening. And yeah, and seeing the way that all has evolved has been very much overall success I find so far. Also involving neighbors, yeah, because neighbors are very important. In conservation scheme, like back in the days, it was more about keeping my peace safe. But now we say no, that's not really going to help in the long term. If your neighbor is hungry, if your neighbor is mad at you, if your neighbor is gonna, break in to go hunting in the forest, or he's gonna maybe cut a tree. And so luckily and very much completely on plan, little by little, other neighbors started to follow, and neighbors have also purchased land nearby to do restoration. That's why they have liked the idea too. And we now build a trail that is 2 kilometers long in between 6 farms, where people can come and they can walk the ecological restoration trail, is called, and get like a few stops on the way to talk about different plants and different fungi and the water and the stories of each farmer. No, each family has like, oh yes, here we dedicate more to specific crops, or here we working more with such and such, or education, and like that. So I think that puts that a little bit more, not only to say that the work is done inside, but we are also trying to, as much as possible, work on the outside too.
I think you bring up so many important points. Like each of these, I feel like we could spend a half hour on, like the return of the birds and all the benefits. But what was the time frame between when you opened the gates to a farm that didn't grow food to when you started seeing like the return of it? I know regeneration is always ongoing, but what would you say the time frame of like kind of rebirth for the farm came?
Very interesting. Good question. I would think myself around the third to fourth year, of constant, because I could see more, not only the annuals, no, or biannuals. I started to see more the perennials turning alive and flowering for the first time, and seeing larger birds coming to perch. I remember I planted a tree and waited. And then one day I said, oh, that tree eventually is going to turn big. And maybe one day I'll see a toucan perch on that tree. And that day came, no? And I oftentimes see more than one. I see 3 or 4, or I see parrots, or maybe not necessarily a big tree, but a small plant that has a lot of flowers attracts, here easy in the garden, 8-9 species of hummingbirds, like on a common day, like hermits go, and barb throats come, and fairies and jacobins, and it's all like very active. Yeah. But I think, like, going back to what you were saying about the importance of the soil, I think was also a part of allowing that soil to recover, not to be able to start sending those clear messages, like, yes, you're doing the things the right way. Your team is helping me. I'm starting to provide too. It's that fast return. And now, well, at the very beginning, we started more with the approach that was on successional agroforestry, or what some people call the earliest stages of syntropic farming. And then we move a little bit to analog forestry, which we still like that. We take into account. But we say we are not completely on one line. No, we are trying to work as the forest around us works in a diverse way. And so we like now a lot the syntropic farming methodology. We're establishing new plots following more this methodology. And also, as the years have gone past, then we're sharing the different tools. Yeah. And with this last one, with syntropic farming, we see the result much faster. Now it's really incredible. Also because we have to acknowledge we have learned from our mistakes, so we know better how to prepare perhaps beforehand the soil a little bit, or the seeds that we have now more of our own that are viable and work very with a lot of energy and very potent. I don't know the right word to describe this, but it's like these seeds have a different energy than the ones initially we get from somewhere else. Yeah. And the plant is the same, no? And we now know better the combinations. And however, we keep, practicing. And tomorrow is a happy day, because tomorrow we have a new plot and we have to put in the soil about nearly 100 more trees. Yeah. To keep growing a little bit the restoration and the regeneration of a plot just next to the house. Yeah.
I think that's amazing because sometimes when we think about regeneration, well, we think it's decades, right? We think it's so long, but I think, as you've expressed, when you're very intentional, when you're bringing back, indigenous organisms, indigenous seeds, it's really not that long to start seeing it turn around. The first few years are a little tough, but then we get past that and then we just start seeing it come back. And like you said, it accelerates and it moves faster because you figured it out and you're working with nature. So I think I always kind of, try to get people just start because you're going to see the results, I think, a lot faster than you anticipated. And nature teaches us so much along the way that if we learn and are receptive to listening, the journey gets even shorter. So I think that's just, such a testament to go from an ungrowable plot to not only creating yours, but bringing in, like you said, your neighbors and inspiring other people. It's not just the soil you live on, it's the community that you're regenerating too, which you've clearly done. You bring people for permaculture, you bring people for the birds, and that's probably like 5 of the benefits out of the 200 benefits that is actually happening on the farm. So I feel like, it's so tough to just, it is chocolate, but it's not chocolate. It's conservation. It's agroforestry. It's permaculture. It's indigenous birds. It's so many amazing things. So I think just sometimes we feel like that's a little overwhelming, but I think just starting, like you said, and just doing it and it just happens. It's magical.
Yeah, it's that way, as you're saying. And also, when the plots have started to regenerate, they help other plots, underground. And the plants and the energy and the way that they're sharing, with each other. And I think many of us have been taught more on the rationalistic way, yeah. And if you have some biology background or agronomy background, very Darwinian thinking, and wrongly interpret Darwinian thinking in that it is the survival of the fittest, no? That fed at one point the exponential growth of capitalism, no? But it's not that way at all. It's actually more about interactions, no? And we are all equally evolved. That's why we are all here, but we depend on each other the same way. And the systems can only move forward if everybody is playing their specific role in the right way, no? And sometimes when we start a plot, we see that out of nowhere comes seeds of something that we didn't really brought in. But it's already like the neighboring plot is helping this new plot. It's not only a thing thinking us humans have to do everything. It's maybe even a bird comes by and disperses a seed, and we say, oh yeah, cool, let's leave this one, no? Or a rodent or a bat or So it is our work important to get started, but then all of the other species are joining in too, because that's what the real pace of nature is. This kind of complementary work, no?
And humans can play a big role in that too. So let's talk a little bit about, no matter where you live, people can purchase a little bit of your slice of heaven and try your different experience. So tell me a little bit about the products that you guys created from this amazing space.
Yes, here I'm going to say about a few of them, but I don't know in which order. Let me see. We have chocolate bars to start. Yeah, we have chocolate bars that are made different concentrations of cacao. More like 70, 80. 80 we have two. One that is raw, one that is normal. Raw being unroasted beans. Yeah. For some people, raw can be also roasted beans, but below a certain temperature. There are like two main words or two main trends or understanding there. And we have 100% chocolate bar, 100%, and we have 65%. Yeah, the pure bars, of course, all but the 100%. The remaining of the content is divided in cacao butter and sugar. In our case, we don't use white sugar. We use raw brown sugar, because it's interesting to know that although you can purchase white organic sugar, they still are big monocultures, no? And they don't grow it here in Ecuador. You have to actually import it from neighboring Colombia. So at one time we were doing many years ago, but then we realized that we had also very good producers of this raw sugar here, sugar cane, and they produce in small scale plots. Yeah, they don't use any big machinery. Yeah, they don't burn the sugar cane to harvest it, and it contributes to the local economy of our small parochial or parish. Yeah, and there are several cooperatives. Yeah, in the early years, people told us that we shouldn't use it because it's going to change the profile of the chocolate. But I think instead of saying change, it's actually enhancing the nutritional value of this product and not necessarily interrupting too much with the nice cacao nacional, very distinctive, pure notes of the biodiversity. And I don't want to get too much into describing the profile of each because I think that's something that is also uh, better to leave to each person, to navigate and to dive into that experience. Different people have different palates, no? And we were talking the other day with a student that is here now, is working with the movement of slow food that we're part of too, and they are designing taste lab. They're doing, yeah, to educate people about tasting, no. But we were commenting that sometimes we are referred to this chart. No, it's like this chart that says tropical fruits, and there's like 5 options, and we joke saying like, "Oh, that's so limited." No, and then nuts, and there's like maybe 8 options, but still so limited. So we say we need to make a bigger circle around this chart and start putting all of the rest that is really happening. Um, each experience is different, no, each batch is different. So I invite people to, don't say okay, I already tried that, not want to try it again, I want to try something else, because the rainy season and the non so rainy season and the different varieties we're harvesting, sometimes we mix 20 varieties in one batch, sometimes we might mix 30, yeah, or sometimes a little less or more of one or the other. Once a very good chocolatier, a connoisseur that is in the big leagues of chocolate internationally, he said to us, he came to the farm and he said, there is not such a thing as good chocolate. Put that in your brain now. And I was surprised and shocked. No, I was like, what is he talking about? He must have gone crazy after eating so much chocolate. And then he said, look, there's only good batches of chocolate. Yeah. Because you might have the best genetics. Yeah. You might have a good management. Yeah. You might have good fermentation. You might have very good drying procedure, even good toasting. Yeah. But you cannot control what's happening under the ground among the other plants. Or you can maybe make a small mistake in the roasting and then the batch is going to change. Or you can have maybe seeds more of one variety or the other. So there's so many variables involved. Not that the most that we try always to give the best experience is always going to be different, and that's something that kind of goes against the trend. No, that people that sometimes want to have the same experience over and over, but the mega biodiversity invite us to think, a little bit beyond those limits or those barriers. Yeah.
And I think that's part of
And besides
accepting natural food, right? Like accepting natural food is accepting that natural is not the same every single time. And so if we embrace biodiversity, we also embrace a different chocolate bar.
yes, no, it's beautiful like that. And it should be like that with chocolate and the rest of foods, no? And we have, interestingly here, um, well, now I lost count to be honest, but I think more or less around 250 other plants have been planted together with the cacao that are edible. Yeah, many others that are also planted there because aesthetic, beautiful flowers, ornamentals, or because they're endangered timbers of the area, or species that are. Uh, I have a passion for as many plants as possible. My wife, same thing, but me maybe a little more. But we put in a lot of fruits, yeah, and a lot of tropical fruits that provide edible nuts. and we are putting then chocolate 65 with different ingredients. Yeah, um, I like a lot the one that I briefly mentioned earlier called guayabilla. Guayabilla is this fruit of the region that is an endemic, very little known, but everyone, when it's presented this fruit and they see the color, they want to smell it. No, immediately they smell and they say it's passion fruit. It's the aroma of a passion fruit. We wash, we dehydrate, then we cut in pieces, and when we add the other neighbor plants of the chocolate or the cacao plants into the chocolate to flavor. No, it's kind of 100% natural flavors. And just like that, we have one that is with cardamom that grows in the understory next to the cacao. Cardamom and sea salt is one of my favorite because the sea salt opens the palate, and then you have like the freshness of the cardamom come in, and then this like stampede of flavors of the cacao nacional behind, and it's really really nice. I like a lot the calamondine one. Calamondine is a citrus relative of lemon, mandarin, oranges, but it's a very small one, and we use the peel. The peel is washed again, dehydrated, and powderized. And this powder is sweet and is also very citrusy, aromatic, like flowers of the citrus is very nice. Then we have other bars that has a nut, yeah, inside, but not the typical nut. Interesting, like many people eat chocolate with nuts. No, worldwide is turning to very well known. But we wanted to do one with a tropical nut. Yeah, so we used the closest or one of the closest cousins of cacao, the bacao or macambo, that is now a little bit trendy too. They sometimes they name this the white cacao or they call it other names too. But this is very close to cacao, and we take the seed and we process similar to a nut, and then put the nips of this the chunks of this seed inside as a filling in the bar. So when you eat, it's like a crunch, and there's flavor of this new nut that is very very tasty and very nutritious too. Then we have the one filled with pulp. That one I like a lot. That one is like a bonbon in a bar. Yeah, each square of your chocolate bar is filled with a liquid. That liquid is like analogous, more or less, to a maple syrup kind of thing. Yeah, but it's from the pulp of the cacao. Yeah, and there is no added sugar. It's just fructose. Yeah, and it has sharp contrast. And it's a chocolate bar invented by my wife. Well, all of the others have she invented. We talked about possibilities. And this one is the first time you try this bar, you can get all of the cacao fruit in one product. Yeah. Before that, everybody's always tried chocolate, chocolate, chocolate. But now and over the years, we started probably 10, 12 years with this bar. Now other people have started to use cacao pulp too. And now they are making it into like a type of sugar too, and add to sweeten, drinks and desserts and things. So it's something that is very nice to see how with one product, then people start developing new products too, and now there's more of that in offer. And we have, I don't know, should I mention all of them? We have a good selection to come, but maybe I was thinking Val would like to complement something. One thing only I wanted to say before maybe is that not many people know that when you make a chocolate, you always need to grind certain amount of beans, yeah, and that creates a chocolate paste. And additional to that chocolate paste, yes, you add the sweetening agent, yeah, in this case the raw sugar cane, and you keep mixing, no, to refine. But always you have to add an extra amount of fat, yeah. The fat that we add is the cacao butter fat, the same fat contained in the seed, but from a separate batch that we process and extract the fat and then add that fat. Why I explain this is because some people just think that chocolate is not the healthiest, because if you eat chocolate, then you're eating something that is maybe not 100% good for you. But that's when you eat like the cheap chocolate. The cheap chocolate, they don't add cocoa butter, but they add hydrogenated oil palm fat the majority of the times. And it's that fat that is not healthy. Not healthy for us to consume, but also for the environment, because the majority of the times, if not all of them, the oil palm fat comes from big monocultures, no extensive big monocultures that happen to have destroyed a lot of the rainforest. So that is one very important thing, that why our chocolate, when you have it in your mouth, in your palate, dissolves very fast. Yeah, because cacao butter has that uniqueness, and also penetrates, but very little bit at a time, and very efficiently, and very soft. It's soft. That's a chocolate that is soft. Yeah. And the other thing is important to mention is that we don't use any emulsifier. Yeah. Many people, when they do chocolate, they just go to a book and follow a recipe, and it says they're used to soy lecithin. 90% of the chocolate bars or more add soy lecithin. We do not add soy lecithin because soy is a crop that is also kind of dark in the way that we know is big monocultures. Not only that, but many is transgenic, GMO, and uses a lot of agrotoxics too. So we always question soy in that way. And we started to do from the very first batches without, and it worked. So we were surprised and said, okay, wow, great, even better. We don't have to use it. But sometimes people think that it's a must, and it's not. Yeah. So we don't put things that are not necessary, and all of the ingredients are like as natural as possible, because that's how we feel it should be. We treat those who decide to support the project, and the conservation of the cacao, and the reserve as well, the same way we would like to be treated. So we have to try to move that way. Mm-hmm.
Val, has he missed anything for the product? Anything you want to add in? I can do a lead in if there's something specific you want to talk about.
Well, no. Yes. I mean, there's a bunch more product, and I know that they're working on new things. For example, we have the cacao powder and cacao nibs. I like the powder because the aroma that it has. It's definitely not the same to make a hot chocolate with the regular cacao that you buy than with the one that we use. I feel like it's completely different when I have a hot chocolate made out of mashed cacao. But the cacao nibs are great because they are super healthy. They're the purest form of cacao, so you get all the benefits without just like straight as it is. And we have, for example, cacao husks, which are great for making tea. We have that. I know they're maybe working. This time we're bringing some of the tea that is already prepared as tea. I think that's it about products. Ali got it pretty good. My favorite bar is the 70% with cacao nibs, which is the 70% bar with just the little pieces of the cacao. And I love that one because I just enjoy the crunchiness of it. And I feel like when you bite into a nib, it kind of releases a bunch of aromas that you were totally not expecting. So that's why it's my favorite bar. About the whole plantation, Ale focused very much on Ecuador and on CCN 51, sorry. But I feel like there is a lot to be said about the worldwide cacao cultivation, right? Cacao, unfortunately, is a crop that carries a lot of problems, a lot of slavery problems, a lot of child labor problems, which I just wanted to briefly mention because those problems are there. And the more people consume regular chocolate, cheap chocolate, or chocolate that has been mass produced, the more that these problems keep on getting deepened.
Kind of walking me through kind of the framework, what that is. Like, basically, we know it's a problem and we don't really know the details. So if you kind of want to a little more
about Ale might know more the exact numbers, but I believe it's about 75% of the cacao that is produced worldwide is produced in Ivory Coast and
Ghana.
And Ghana.
New Guinea.
and Ghana, New Guinea, and a lot of these crops are owned or by big corporations. So people are forced to, sometimes they have to travel far to work in these crops. A lot of times it's young kids that are scouted by people, and then they go, they tell them, hey, we're going to give your kid a job. Your kid is going to be able to give an economic support to your family, but these people are not getting paid a fair price. Most of the time they are harvesting cacao when it's not ready. They're harvesting the cacao not at their peak. It is monocultures. A lot of times it is, they are using pesticides, and it's kids that do not, or even adults that do not have the proper equipment to manage all these things. And normally it goes to two main cacao brokers who end up making the cacao. And then a lot of times farmers get paid once or twice a year, definitely not a living wage. So it is a big problem. And yes, there's an argument that says that this is the only thing that they could be doing anyway, but that doesn't mean that it's fair or that they should be doing that. A lot of the problem that is happening in West Africa too is that they are, like Ali was saying, sometimes they're cultivating cacao in land that it's not there. So there's like a lot of national parks that are being not legally cultivated with cacao because the land that was previously cultivated is already exhausted. It's dead. They cannot produce anymore. So they just start advancing more and more. So I feel like there's that that conversation that is a very big conversation that needs to be mentioned. And the other thing that I think that Ali kind of missed a little bit was the work that Mashpee does with women. They have traditionally empowered women in the communities, which Ecuador being Mashpee, the area where it is, it's a rural community where a lot of men traditionally have gone to the city to find jobs. And then what ends up happening is that women end up having to live in the community, supporting their families somehow. So when I first started with them, one of the biggest thing now, it's kind of, I feel from what my point of view now, we have to remember I am in the US and my job is to support Mashpee via commercializing the chocolate. So I am not there day to day. I talk to them often. I try to, keep seeing what's going on. So this is a conversation that I feel like it has been normalized a little bit from my point of view, that women in the community are now a lot more empowered than they were when they started, because now they know the recipes of chocolate of chocolate. They know the plants. So it feels like, from over here, it feels like something has been normalized that didn't used to be normal at the beginning. I don't know, Ali, if you can say more about that, or if you want to.
Yeah, no, I think the two things that you mentioned are very important. No, there's a big documentary by Dolce Vele about the real dark side of chocolate. No, talks about all this really sad part of the 1.5 million youth slavery, basically working for plantations for big corporations. No? And it's a story that nobody is commenting much. It's like, at least from my point of view, maybe I'm wrong, but I think it's mostly that cacao is directly taken by the European market, and that's why nobody wants to hear about it, because they're very diplomatic in their way of managing things, Hippocratic too, and so it's something that is out of the radar for many people, and also they have many different things around that. But like you were saying, they go to national parks, they cut down the understory of the forest, plant a lot of cacao, and then they disappear. So when the authorities come, like, nobody's there to check what happened, but they leave the plants, because there's a lot of corruption, as we know. They leave the plants go, then they come and harvest. And because the plants don't have a management, they yield more or less, but then the demand is more and more, as we were saying in the earlier part of the interview. Now with the Asian market opening is like huge, so they go to yet other new parks, other new areas, and continue on doing this. And it's really not helping that At times, people make a comment on that they find it hard to understand how is it that if now Ecuadorians are making chocolate, the price of the bar is so high. Sometimes they say, yeah. I have had that here on site in Mashpi by Europeans and also by a few people from North America. And we have said it's not that the price is high or low, it's that it's a real price. Yeah. And you're supporting something that is real, is here, you can see it. The other price that you're getting is getting subsidized by the environment, by the people, by the livelihoods, by biodiversity. So it's not real, that price. Yeah, that price is just reflecting the interests of the big corporations in detriment of the planet, basically, And so I think that's an interesting thing to talk about. And the other subject, the women working in Mashpi, yes, it's a powerful team. I said at the very beginning, it is the work of a family here, big family. Now we embrace these other collaborators as family, basically. And when I first started interacting more with girls working with Agustina in the workshop, I remember that the two sisters were a bit kind of shy, and they were seeing kind of wrong that a man would take role in the kitchen in cooking or washing or organizing, and they see that as disruptive, but then they see that we can the majority of the times we share lunch, and we talk subjects, we cook different perhaps, but they have learned that, they have seen that men can do things. And one time I remember one of them told me, like, my father is coming tomorrow, he wants to talk with you. And he came and he said, oh, I want to thank you because you have taught my daughter that men can also do their own, and now they have forced me to learn more cooking and more helping in the house. And I have learned that I don't necessarily depend on that they are here, or that they do this for me to have food or a clean or an organized house. So like that, those small examples, like Val was saying, teach that little by little they get empowered. They see, oh, somebody else is doing, why can the others not do? I know more about how to use local plants, so I share that with my family, and they are being more independent, because historically people in the countryside, like the men would have the energy to go and use a machete or something, they would harvest, they would pay. And the women doing all the hard work also, but staying home, they don't get paid, no? And some of these women are also in the countryside single mothers, yeah. So it's even harder. They don't have that choice that somebody is going to be there to, be part and help. And so for them, having a job here has been very important. And as Val said, also empowering for other women that see that they have managed and that they are doing, and also involved to the hosting of groups in the farm comes alongside that we are part of a small local association of community tourism. Yeah. So when there's our groups coming, sometimes other women not directly working with us get involved in hosting the group and take them for a walk to the river or to a waterfall, or in cooking, or in different other roles too. So I think that's as important, especially in Latin America, especially in Ecuador, especially in the countryside, where it's a lot of still today very chauvinistic culture. No? But slowly we're getting to change that. And I feel sorry a little bit that Agustina, my wife, is shy and she doesn't feel like she can speak enough English, but she's listening. She's just here. But maybe she wants to say something about it, but she seems very busy now. ¿Algo quisieras decir algo de eso que estaba hablando?
No, estoy leyendo
Por favor, He's just busy reading about the plot we're going to plant tomorrow, but she's coming now.
Is there anything you want to share about your experience? Because we can cut it in. I know everybody has a unique experience, but anything you want to share about the amazing work you're doing?
¿Qué dicen?
Que si hay algo que quiere decir.
And if you want to translate for her, since
Nada, que nos gusta, que es nuestra forma de vida aquí en la finca.
She says that we like it, that is our livelihood,
Contribuir.
that we're happy to be able to contribute. ¿Qué más?
Eso.
Yeah, basically.
I think you're doing far more than contributing. You're doing amazing work. So, I know it seems, every day farming, getting after it, but it really is transformational, right? So it's amazing stuff you're doing.
Thank you.
Val, is there anything else you want to throw in there? I feel like we covered a lot of good things.
Well, we could go forever and ever, but I think you got a lot.
I was about to say, I'll cut it up and change it around and put 3 pictures on it. But no, I think you cover a lot of good things because it's tough to cover the hard subjects and then mix that with the regeneration. So I think we've got a good mix of both. So I think we're all right.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right.
And then,
well,
put, the little detail that we have. That's my job as Mashpee. My way of supporting the incredible job, the work that they do is they do all the bars, they do all the products at the farm where everything happens, and then I import it here in the U.S. and I distribute it, and then of course we could maybe put a webpage or something.
We'll definitely we'll have links, we'll have pictures of the products. I was about to say it'll go through it after.
So it ships directly from here. Most of the time during the summer, my stock is low, which I always tell in my Instagram and everything because it's chocolate and it's hot. And I live in Nevada and it's really hot. But we ship from here and we love talking to people and all that.
Awesome. All right. Well, I really appreciate Alejandro. I appreciate all your depth of knowledge and all I was about to say, I wish we could spend an hour each on you pulling the indigenous microbes, what you chopped and ground. I would go into the weeds and we'd be here for hours, but I really appreciate it.
Maybe you need to visit him in Ecuador.
Oh.
I was about to say, that would be a dream.
Where are you based?
We're in the United States. So we're on the East Coast from Val. But one day.
Atlanta, right?
No, I'm actually in Virginia. So
I've asked you 5 times.
Oh, yeah. I was about to say we're all over the place, right? I really appreciate it, though. I know so I'm transforming my conventional farm too. It was a cattle farm, and we are regenerating it. And sometimes you get into the work and you get exhausted, and sometimes you don't get to pull back and realize what you've done. But from an outside perspective, what you're doing is really amazing for the biodiversity, for the soil, for the industry. The work is just so important. I feel like we can't tell people that enough. Pull back. What you're doing is so important to the world.
It's true, yeah. And when we are immersed, we don't see much the changes. But then when somebody else comes, it's like, wow, everything has changed so much. And you say, okay, yes, of course. But
yep.
More difficult, to see it with a different set of eyes, kind of saying.
Yeah, that's one of the things I always just try to say, take a minute, look at it from somebody who it was nothing grew to look what it is now. And because it's hard to not get lost in the work.
Congratulations and good luck on the regenerative work there.
You too. Thank you both. I appreciate it so much.
I'm glad it finally happened.
Me
Sorry
too.
about last time.
Oh, that's all right. It was so much fun. Thank you, guys.
Okay, bye. Ciao, Ale. Nos vemos.
Chao, que estén bien.
Chao, chao.
Bueno.